Morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. As always, we will go through questions I received in the community this week or came up in coaching calls. So we will dive right in. So the first one is around the offer, and it's a general question around, should I get certifications to augment my education and experience? And this comes up every once in a while. And my short answer is if they're easy and you're learning things, then yes. But if you think those differentiators are going to get you a job, the answer is no, right? So basically, your skills and experience and what you do and the contribution you have and the value that you're going to bring that we talk about is what's going to get you the job. Certifications can substitute sometimes. So, like, you don't quite have the experience, but you have a certification, that's better than nothing, right? So it's sort of a risk mitigation thing. And then in certain jobs, it is a qualifier, right? I'm not going to talk to you if you don't have this. Classic examples of that are the PMP, the project management certification for those in that field, or there's like the CISSP in the security world. There's a couple of things, probably the more hardcore the field, the more important the cert, right? So again, what you want to think about is certs won't get you a job. So if you're like, I could go do this thing, or I could go take some education about this thing, go do the thing, because that's where you have actual experience and that's going to be valuable. If you can't do that, or you're too busy, or there's just something you want to learn, absolutely go get it. It is better than having no experience. And then for a few jobs, and you can see them because they're very clear in the job descriptions if that's what you want. There are sometimes expectations. As I said, there's a couple of them that truly are for some companies, not all companies. For some companies, they won't talk to you if you don't have this thing, but you can find that on the job description. So that's 2 cents on certifications. Okay, next question. This is around leads. Like, if I'm looking in general, so basically not really going for a job right now, how should I think about networking? Right. And so this is the scenario where networking is good practice. You want to get out there and do it. Where should you target? If you're not really looking for a job, you don't have a target company in mind. And the sort of twist here is my recommendation would be you're looking to, think of it as collecting companies, right? Because if you're broad and you don't know where you want to go, exactly what you want to do, you just want to kind of practice networking. Well, yes, it's always good to get the classic. You want somebody in jobs that you want sort of people who can help you sort of figure out how to get there. But if you're like, you don't know what your target is, what do you do? And again, my advice is go broad and get different companies, right? So you want, again, just to pick on tech, if you had somebody at Apple and somebody at Amazon and somebody at Microsoft and somebody at Google and somebody at, name the companies that you want based on your industry, go get one person in that company. Because again, the 0 to 1 is the hardest part. So if you have nobody in a company, getting one connection is oftentimes the hardest part. If you have one, then if something comes up, even if it's a different division, even if it's a different, sort of job family, even if they can't help you get that job, they can introduce you to people who maybe can help that job. So if you're just networking to just network, I would encourage you to think about it as a, breadth of experience in terms of industry, company, et cetera. So try to collect companies. And so find companies where you have nobody and go meet some people at that company. That would be what I would do in a general networking scenario if you don't have a specific target in mind. All right. Now, sales question. Just accepted an offer, so congrats. Again, a lot of people get offers, but they tend to be quiet about it. So I'm not going to mention who this was, but just accepted an offer. Any advice on how to tell my current manager I don't want to burn bridges? And there are basically two schools of thought here. I mean, in terms of things that you want to think about, right? So the first is why? Why are you leaving? And what you want to do is give them a reason that they would agree with, right? That's the ultimate goal here, is for them to go, oh, I get it. Yeah, if I were you, I would take that job, right? And so it's not about them. Obviously, you don't want to say, well, you suck as a manager, or, this company's going down. Like, you don't want to talk about any of that. You want to say, ideally, this is a opportunity to do this thing that I've always wanted us to do, and clearly we can't do here. And it can be switching industries, it can be a big title jump, it can be an amazing comp package, it can be something that's so good that I couldn't turn it down. Like, that's basically what you want to do. You want to make sure it's not about them, it's about this opportunity and how you couldn't turn it down because of X, Y, and Z. And the best scenario is if they go, yeah, yep, I get it, right? I would have done the same thing. And then there's no personal aspect to it. And then two, and this is the more obvious one, is just make sure the transition is easy. Like, don't just leave, see what you can do, write up some extra, documentation around transition or some plans or some ideas or how to reorganize your team or who might be a good backfill. Like, do what you can to help them fill your gap, right? So let's do that. One, make sure it's not personal. Give them a reason they would agree with. Two, do a little bit extra, right? Obviously, there's going to be stuff that's not involved with you, but if you have ideas, just that little bit of, hey, I know I'm leaving. I know we got a big season coming up, releases, whatever it is. Here, I put some thoughts on paper. I wrote this up with my thoughts on how to best manage the transition and how to kind of divvy things up. And I just want to, it's your choice, obviously, the manager, but here are some thoughts. I'm trying to be helpful. That's the messaging you want to give to the existing manager. So again, if you got a job, awesome, congratulations. But do think about, you never know, these things come back. So make sure you kind of keep those relationships going. Okay, next one around, again, sales, like that interview. So the question is, do you have any guidance on what to include or how to introduce yourself when talking during an introductory HR call versus talking to a hire manager? Okay, so the question, just to kind of clarify again, is do you do things differently when you're doing the HR screening and when you're doing the hardcore interviews? And the answer is yes, right? So the way to think about it is the HR interview is looking for three things, right? So the first is, are you who you say you are? They have a resume, they have a LinkedIn, they want to talk to you and make sure that it's basically true, right? Oh, it's you have some experience with this. Tell me about this. They're trying to make sure that you are what you say you are, right? The second one is, are you a good communicator, right? Are you just, again, you need to get on the camera, you need to be able to talk to somebody, you need to be able to be articulate and engaging and seem like a generally nice person. So they're checking that just pure kind of cultural fit at a very high level. And three, which is, okay, you got those who are okay. You are who you say you are, you seem like a good person. Now let's check the qualification list, right? So this job requires, and that was handed to the HR person. So they're going to go through the list of, okay, experience in this technical system, so many years managing this, knowledge of this product, knowledge of this industry. Like, have you done those things? They're doing the checklist. Okay, so that's the HR, just those three things. The first one's super easy because you are who you are. The second one, presumably, is fine because again, you're basically a good person. You know how to communicate. And three is, are you qualified? So now, when you go to the second half, which is an actual hiring manager interview, think about it this way. The HR screener has done this. So everybody going to the to the hiring manager has been pre-screened as a good person, et cetera, and qualified. So now showing that you're qualified, presumably all 10 or all 20, however many they got, they're all qualified. That was the idea. So occasionally you find somebody who slipped through the cracks and wasn't qualified. So yes, you need to make sure that obviously you are still qualified, but that's not the game. The game is, I'm now talking to 10 people who are all qualified. What do I like about you, right? So the first thing they're doing is, did they do a good job qualifying? So they'll kind of ask you a few questions, right, just to make sure that HR didn't mess it up, that you are worth talking to. So that's the qualification that you want to think about. And then is, are you the best candidate? So somewhere in this list of qualifications is the true problem, right? And this is what the whole course is. And so I won't go into this too much, but remember, what is the actual problem and are you the best person to solve it? So it very quickly moves into, how am I unique? How can I do this in a way that will differentiate me from the other 10 candidates who are having the exact same conversation and have a very, very similar qualifications that I do? What makes me unique? So that's where it comes through. So again, first one, can you do the job? HR. Once you pass that, it really goes into that unique value proposition that can be helpful with the HR, but it's less important. Those are the two phases you want to think about in terms of the interview. Okay, so that's that one. And then last question for today is, let's see here, results. Okay, what do I do if I've never had managers reporting to me, and how do I bridge that gap? So if you manage teams, and this is a lot of people kind of in the community, you kind of manage teams, it could be a big team, and you want to move to that manager of managers, right? And that's kind of one of those major steps, because once you have manager of managers, that's the last one, and then it's just continued levels of managers and managers and managers, but the hard one is managers and managers, right? So how do you bridge that gap? And easiest way obviously is to figure out a way to get another manager, but you want to get, again, the theme is always the same. How can you get as close as possible to that thing that you need if you don't have it, right? And for example, if you don't have managers, do you have multiple functions? Do you have multiple, applications, multiple services, and you have a lot of control over this. So even though you run one portfolio of let's say even just one system, that system might have multiple modules, right? And so first of all, you want to describe your work as managing multiple things. Don't just say, I'm in charge of this product. That's great, But if you're trying to show that manager aspect, you want to say, I'm in charge of this product, which has three major functions, transaction entry, reporting, and something else, right? You want to sort of say, I have multiple things, and then you want to have a lead of each of the things, right? And then I have a lead of reporting, I have a lead of the core transaction engine, and I have a lead of data, right? Now, that may be a lead who um, doesn't literally have anybody reporting to them, but you want to have that construct. And so the only thing you're missing is the HR line, right? You are used to giving instructions to a person who will then lead an effort with other people, right? And so you're basically working your way to the manager of managers without literally having the manager of managers. You can say instead of, well, in my group today, we have three functions. So I run the overall application, and then we have three functions where I have three leads, and those leads are each responsible for, and they're surrounded by a team of, even if it's two, four, and three, right? You've now sort of set yourself up as a manager. And if somebody asks, like, well, are they technically managers? And you say, well, operationally, yes, because that's how you operate. You operate in a sort of manager's role. From an HR perspective, they technically all report to me, so I still handle the performance reviews and the official hiring and firing and stuff like that. But operationally, it is that way that I have a multi-layer structure within my organization, right? Because that's 80% of the way there, right? Because the operational managers is the hard part. The hiring and firing of managers is not a lot different than just the hiring and firing of people, right? And so by answering that way, by structuring your team, which you have a lot of control over, you have demonstrated the skills of a manager, even though you do not have the HR title sort of system view of it. So that's how I would do that, right? Again, the whole theme is how close can you get to that thing that you're missing? And oftentimes you have a lot of capability to construct the story. Again, as I always say, it's art, but it starts with truth, right? So don't say things, don't do that if you haven't actually named leads. Like, go do it, right? And start to operate that way. And once you operate that way, then you can explain it that way. So be truthful, but within that truth, you have a lot of choice about which parts to focus on. And that's a way to show the ability to oversee people who are overseeing work as a two-layer structure, even if you don't have that in HR. So hope that helps. And those are questions for today. So as always, if you have other questions, just DM me in the community, drop me a note, and we'll do this again next week. Hope everybody had a great week, and we will see you in the community.